The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan York. Tonight we're going to talk about a bill to protect restaurants after COVID slows down. Stay tuned for that. It's really kind of important. In the meantime, something really good government happened this week. Leadership articulated the way it's supposed to by Governor Dan McKee. It all starts with this conversation about a climate council and this new climate bill, which is a growth of a 2014 bill that we have in existence here that focuses on green, but it's really a recommendation more than anything else. This legislation that the House and Senate are passing this week and that Governor McKee expects to sign is all about creating policy and the format for such. The General Assembly's Republicans are very concerned about two things. One, that it gives too much power to this commission, which, by the way, are mostly people who report to the governor anyway. And number two, that it allows for anybody to sue anybody in regard to it. The details of this we discussed with Attorney General Peter Nerona in my last conversation with him here on Dan York State of Mind. So check WPRI.com for that information. But the long story short was this. Representative Mike Chippendale, Republican, good guy, on the Tara Granahan show on WPRO earlier last week, more or less gave a threatening consultation to Dan McKee if he signed this bill.
If he signs this, that base is gone, and he should not even file for candidacy in 2024 because his base will be dead.
So there you go. When asked about Chippendale's consultation, Dan McKee said something that, well, listen.
You know, I've always felt as though that the strength of the policy is the most important thing, and if you do a good job on that, the voters will respond. So to be kind of calculating on votes at the ballot box 18 months from now, that I wouldn't be doing my job if I did that. To be worried about an election would be, as a term I've used in the past, that'd be political malpractice. We got to do the work, and then the people are going to decide whether that work is worth, re-electing the people who are doing the work.
That's the edited version, but that's the kind of leadership that we want. And that's the authentic Dan McKee that I know. And it's simply this: policy over politics. If you're doing the right thing or trying to, the politics and elections take care of themselves. If you mistake or make mistakes, elections take care of themselves. Do the right thing and let the chips fall where they may. Not a theme you hear much in politics these days. All right, in the meantime, let's move to the conversation of the evening, and that is this bill from Representative Carol McEntee describing the need for protection for restaurants after, for lack of a better term, COVID is over. So we joined State Representative Carol McEntee from South Kingstown, Narragansett, that would be District 33, and I just think that she's written a bill which is wholly necessary for a whole bunch of reasons. So, Rep, thank you very much for joining me. Your orientation as a lawyer representing businesses, as a person in the community, I'm sure has advised you on this need for restaurants to have some level of continuity of protection for the investments that they've made in outdoor dining. So, and whatever other things that they've had to do, right? So welcome, thank you, and tell me what caused your interest in this.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan. And as you know, I'm chairwoman of the Small Business Committee in the House of Representatives. And I'm also a business person myself. I'm a lawyer. I have offices in Warwick and South Kingstown. And I've done some zoning work in the past, and I know how difficult it is to get these outdoor dining spaces approved by any city or town. So when I saw how easily they were handing them out about, I would say, not quite in March, it started somewhere around, I would say May. They had the executive orders went into place, and all the town managers and mayors and planners were empowered with the ability to approve these things with just approve these outdoor dining spaces with just a sketch on a piece of paper of how they planned on putting this together. Well, what's going to happen after the executive orders are lifted? Once we were back in session, I said, we got to do something about this, because I know what's going to happen the minute the executive orders are lifted. All of these restaurant outdoor spaces are in non-compliance with their zoning ordinances. So therefore, they could be shut down. So my theory is we took away their ability to do business in the status quo as they were doing up until March 2020. And they became creative. They adjusted to the new normal. They bought tents, they bought fire pits, they bought tables, chairs, they wired TVs outside, and the like. They put up these big, as you see, some of them have these big brick cement blocks, like Jersey barriers that are fencing off their area in the parking lot. So I said, they need the ability to continue in this fashion, at least for the rest of the year.
Let's talk about the two sides of it. You've got the investment from the restaurateurs, the owners, and the like kind of food concession businesses that have, everywhere from, or anywhere from, throwing out an old picnic table and an umbrella,
right,
to, as I've read, the Muse in your district, puts invests six figures in
right,
fancy tents to try to develop a little continuity in terms of the outdoor dining. So, So I think you've got a spectrum of, just a little bit to a whole lot of it. So their investment is important to protect. The second part of this thing, I think, is consumer behavior. Look, we've been, I just, as we speak, I'm doing pretty well after the second shot yesterday. We're recording this with the State Rep McEntee on Thursday morning for your weekend viewing it. We're still not gung-ho on indoor dining at this point. I'm sure we'll get more relaxed as the thing calms down and as we feel comfortable about our vaccination status. But I think there are a lot of folks who are just kind of saying, you know what, I'm good, outdoor dining. And should the executive order end and local municipalities say, okay, wrap it up, get out of the parking lot.
right.
Consumer options are going to be limited.
Exactly. And we got to encourage everybody to get back out, get socialized again. I mean, we're having mental health issues over this. So, I mean, there's a whole battery of things that are happening to people by not doing what they usually do, which is going out, socializing, seeing people, visiting restaurants. I mean, it's the economy, but it's everything. It's our well-being.
Yeah, the thing that I think most people are not cognizant of. Look, since COVID hit, the world has been kind of like in a fetal position, right? Just like, and we were conditioned to listen to Governor Gina Raimondo, who I think gets high marks for their first few months of getting a hold on this whole thing. That deteriorated in my mind over the course of 2020 with her lack of, I think, both acumen and response to the small business community. Now Governor McKee, acting as lieutenant governor, I think was much more on that game. I'm guessing that he'll be very supportive of the concept of your bill should it come to his desk. But for the most part, I think people are just so engaged in their own self-protection and keeping their own lives going here. They're not paying much attention to the mechanisms of government. Right. And so, okay, well, the governor says we can do this. Well, the governor says we can do that. Well, the governor says, isn't it ironic, by the way, that in a state that long has been somewhat viewed as a weak governor state, that the executive order has made the governor such a high profile and almost exclusive authority. The General Assembly giving the governor emergency authority every 30 days renewed has built a condition here that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to. It's a civics lesson. When and if that emergency authority is rescinded, whether Governor McKee says, all right, I don't need it anymore, or the General Assembly steps up and says, okay, that's it, we're done.
Right.
Everything re-COVID that has been ordered ends immediately.
Right.
Now, your suggestion to underlay a protection for the restaurant businesses, I think is brilliant in the sense that, I think the General Assembly's fallen asleep. I'm glad that the entity is going to go ahead and consider writing this, because if you wait and everyone says, "Oh shoot," and then local zoning officials and everybody else is saying, "Well, we don't like the look of this," and blah, 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 that, I think you're going to be in a bad space. So, sorry for the long-winded response to your idea. I just don't think that the general public knows how important this bill is going to be.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, I see it as, as a lawyer and as a person who sat on the town council in South Kingstown for 7 years. So I know how this works. And they're everywhere, these outdoor spaces. And this is going to be a chance for these businesses to come back to life, to make back their losses, get their clientele. I mean, they've lost all their customers. We have to bring them back. And they have to bring them back in any way that they're willing to come. And the cities and towns are going to have to be cooperative about this, because if they don't make money, the cities and towns don't get their meal tax and their hotel tax, and the state isn't going to get the revenue from them. So we really have to bring this back and stop depending on the federal government for another, big bailout.
All right, well, that's a good segue. When we come back with State Rep McEntee, we'll talk about some of the concerns that local officials have about this, and we'll touch base on a couple of other matters of the General Assembly. Stay with us on My State of Mind.
I know that the intent from what she was saying was for outdoor service, but this bill doesn't say outdoor service. This bill says any modifications made will not be, cities and towns will not be able to enforce its ordinances or zoning improvements for any modifications made to in comply with directives, executive orders, or restrictions issued by the governor. So we think it's a little bit overly broad in the way that it's worded.
That is the voice of Rick Goldstein, who is the Pawtucket City Clerk, who, when he heard about the law that is being proposed by State Representative Carol McEntee to extend for 1 year a moratorium against any pullback of outdoor dining from one community to the next, he raised some concerns. Rep, the thing that he's concerned about mostly is that there is no specificity in the language of your bill that says outdoor dining. It more or less refers to changes during COVID, and he's concerned that that'll mitigate the authority of local zoning and municipal officials of all kinds. What is your reaction to that, and are you open to some kind of negotiation on language?
Well, I'm clearly talking about outdoor. It's the extension of outdoor dining. Excuse me, sorry. I feel I'm clearly talking about that. That's the only changes that have really been made, other than indoor, where they've had to separate the tables, and depending on what stage we've been in. Right now we're at 75% indoor capacity, but they still have a limit of how far apart they are as far as each table. So they don't have the number of tables that they used to have. But I'm clearly talking about the ordinances that are in effect, or will be in effect once the emergency orders are lifted, regarding outdoor dining and zoning ordinances. So I'm not sure why he's saying that's not in there, but those are the big changes that have been made.
Yeah, well, again, it references changes due to emergency action. Perhaps something, some cover sentence in your bill that, in the spirit of, or outdoor dining, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Look, in defense of what the clerk was saying in Pawtucket, he is suggesting that, what may be good for Narragansett or South Kingstown may not be good for his condensed city. If somebody's put some outdoor dining apparatus in a strip mall because their restaurant is here and the dry cleaners is there, maybe there's a parking lot issue that goes on there. Maybe he's most concerned about some businesses he had some trouble with in outdoor dining where it was, over the summer, too loud, and the residents had problems with that. So it seems to me that, by the way, he doesn't disagree with the spirit of your intent, so he says. I hope that municipal officials will be fully consulted and you'll get to this. You got a good read in the House about the momentum for this, and have you heard anything about what the Senate is thinking about your idea?
I know that there is a companion bill in the Senate, Senator Alana DiMario, also from Narragansett and North Kingstown, put it in. But I don't know, I haven't been following where it went, but I can tell you this. The Small Business Committee in the House is in full support. As a matter of fact, most of them signed on to the bill. And everybody I talked to in the House is very supportive. I've talked a little bit about it with Speaker Sakachi. He seems to be supportive. And we all still, a lot of us in the House want to continue to dine outside. So, I'm open to amendments, reasonable amendments on this bill. I don't want to annihilate the spirit of it. And I think if we don't do it across the entire state, you're going to have, it's going to cause problems in each different area with different ideas coming from each town. It should be something, right now we're running uniformly throughout the state on this issue of outdoor dining.
Right.
And it would be a shame if each city and town, 39 cities and towns, make their own rules or go back to the old norm, or some change the rules. Like my town of South Kingstown, the town manager saw the bill. I discussed it with the town council. They've already extended their own moratorium until September. So They thought it was a good idea. Now, I talked to Narragansett. I believe they think it's a good idea, but they haven't gotten around to it yet.
Right. Well, so good. Hopefully, any timetable on moving this through, because we don't know when the executive order will be rescinded. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow or next week. It's probably a mid-late summer thing at earliest. But you guys got this little thing called the budget and some other garbage, I think, running through your legislative pipeline right now. So is this thing going to be up and ready for a vote soon, you think?
Well, I certainly hope so. It's on my list. I know that Speaker Sakachi wants to talk to all of us. He's asking for us to list, the bills that are most important to us, although my list is getting longer and longer. But this one is on the top of my list. I think it makes sense. It'll take effect immediately, and it'll help people. And those are the kind of bills you really want to see move.
Right.
Make a difference in the economy.
Well, there are a couple of bills that I really don't want to see move too quickly. I'm going to talk to you about that when we come back. State Representative Carol McEntee is with us. A couple of minutes. Stay with us.
Thank you.
The CDC, the FDA, on the CDC website, the Food and Drug Administration does not mandate vaccination. However, whether a state or local government or employer, for example, may require or mandate a COVID-19 vaccination is a matter of state or other applicable law. And that's what I want to make sure, that we don't take an experimental vaccine, because again, this is not FDA approved yet, and all of a sudden start mandating this vaccine upon people when again, it has not even been approved yet.
That is Representative Thomas Norrie on with the Matt Allen Show on WPRO earlier this week. While he refused to join us here and on the radio to defend his idea, he's talking about, Rep. McEntee, a bill to prevent employers from not hiring somebody because they haven't taken a vaccine, or employees from being docked or losing their jobs for not taking the vaccine. And while I'm sure he's acting in some kind of earnest, he says he's not an anti-vaxxer, but I don't have time to get into that right now. I'd like to see where the proof of that is. I mean, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania said all the public employees have to take a vaccination, but there's no penalty that I've seen at this point. I know the schools are going to battle through this. That's one thing, but what's the proof? I only have a couple minutes here. What's the proof that that's a problem that needs a legislative response right now? What's your take?
It absolutely doesn't. It's although I respect my colleague, Representative Norrie, I wholeheartedly disagree with that bill. He's almost trying to create a protected group of people who don't want to get vaccinated. And in so doing, I think we're giving the wrong message, quite frankly. I mean, I'm part of I was in on the hearing because I'm vice chair of Judiciary, but I'm also on the House COVID 19 vaccine task force, which Representative Norray is also on. And we are encouraged, we meet with the other members and Dr. Alexander Scott and several of the other people from the health department, and we go over numbers and we go over vaccinations. And we're constantly talking about how do we get everyone to get vaccinated. These people who are reluctant, we want to encourage them. And I see no reason at this point to carve out any kind of protected group for people who don't want to get the vaccination for whatever reason. Mostly, we're not even 50% vaccinated at this point.
Yeah, but we're short on time. I hear your sentiment as well, but respectfully, I don't think your sentiment is the major argument here. The major argument here is there's no precedent. There's no constitutional or statutory support for me firing you because you won't take the vaccine, especially while it's under emergency authorization. By the way, it's not experimental, as Representative Norray would say. It's past clinics of experimental. It is authorized under emergency authorization, perhaps not fully approved, and that fully approved does talk that would be a different dynamic in terms of who gets fired or who gets hired. I just think, in as much as your bill to create a continuity for an existing business dynamic on the restaurants is wholly appropriate and urgent, I see no urgency for this other one. It just...
I absolutely agree with you. It's clearly, if nothing else, it's premature. And I don't even know if we should hear it at any point. I mean, until we have total herd immunity, it doesn't even make sense.
Well, again, tell me where someone's getting away with that, and wait, exactly, and maybe we'll have a legislative response. Listen, anyway, good luck with this bill. Thank you very much. Folks, support this bill. Tell your reps that you want these restaurants to be protected, but for both the owners and the consumers. Rep, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us.
Stay safe and get vaccinated.
We'll be right back on My State of Mind. Stay with us. On a final note, I'm recording this show Thursday morning after getting the second shot on Wednesday morning. So luckily I'm working. So far, so good. So for those of you who are really worried about this, some people have a tough 24 to 36 hour bout with this, but the bout with COVID is a whole lot worse. Get your vaccinations, and we'll get back to this thing called normal. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on the radio, too, from 3 to 6 on WPRO. Good night.